Reba put her head in her hands. The facade was crumbling faster than a cheap cookie. She looked up at her family, the people she loved, the people who drove her crazy, the people who couldn't let her have one night of peace without turning it into a federal investigation. "Okay, that's it," Reba said, her voice firm. "Ted is not my boyfriend. The person I was dating was me." The table went silent. "Well, then who's this guy?" Van asked, pointing at Ted. "My name really is Ted," the man said, standing up. "But I'm not a Canadian bicycle salesman. I was just trying to be weird enough to scare you all off. Apparently, I underestimated the competition." "So," Reba Brock said, his voice softening, "you never had a date?" "Yeah, I did," Reba admitted. "I had a date set up with that zookeeper Barbara Jean found, but he never showed. But as I was sitting there by myself, I realized something. I realized that I like spending time by myself, but I'm always so busy taking care of y'all that I never get the chance to do that." She looked at Cheyenne and Van. "I need some time away from the house, and if that means going out reading a book, or learning French, or just sitting in a parking lot eating crackers, well, I don't think that's such a big deal, and it's not too much to ask." Cheyenne looked down at her lap. "We're sorry, Mom. I guess we didn't realize how much you did around the house till we had to do it ourselves this week." "Yeah," Van added. "We learned a valuable lesson. It only cost me $80 and an iPod to bribe Jake and his weird friends to help with the yard." Chapter 7. The family eventually left, shuffling out of the restaurant with their tails between their legs. Brock stayed behind for a moment, looking at Reba. "Well, Reba," he said, "I'm glad you weren't dating a con man. And when you do find someone, I hope he's at least as handsome and well put together as I am." "Thanks, Brock." Reba smiled. "But I hope he doesn't have your bird legs." Brock laughed, patted his thighs, and walked out. Reba sat back down at her table. She felt lighter. The truth was out. And more importantly, she had reclaimed her right to her own life. "So," Ted said, pulling out the chair opposite her, "is the offer for dinner still on the table? Or do I have to go back to Ottawa and sell more imaginary bicycles?" Reba laughed. A real, genuine laugh. "You're a good sport, Ted. And you're dangerous." "My family's crazy, too," Ted said. "But after meeting yours, I think I'll call mine tonight and tell them I love them from a safe distance." "Hey," Reba asked, as the waiter approached, "what do you really do for a living?" Ted smiled. "I'm a musician." Reba groaned. "I knew it. I told them I'd never date a musician." "Technically," Ted said, "we're not dating. We're just two people who like each other going out in public." "Careful," Reba warned. "That's how lattes happen." Chapter 8. The Rhythm of the Night. The nun date that followed Petit Jacques wasn't a latte. It was better. It was a Tuesday evening in a dimly lit jazz club in downtown Houston, a place called the Blue Note. Reba felt a strange fluttering in her chest as she smoothed her dress. She hadn't been out with a man who wasn't her ex-husband. Well, she didn't want to do the math, because it made her feel like a historical artifact. "You look like you're bracing for an impact," Ted said, appearing beside her. He was dressed in black, holding a guitar case that looked like it had traveled more miles than a Greyhound bus. "I'm just waiting for Barbara Jean to pop out of a tuba," Reba admitted, glancing nervously toward the stage. "I checked the instrument cases. We're clear," Ted laughed, ready to see what a musician actually does. For the next 2 hours, Reba didn't think about laundry. She didn't think about Van's latest confusion or Cheyenne's drama. She watched Ted. On stage, he was different. The playful, sarcastic man from the restaurant was replaced by someone soulful, focused, and undeniably talented. His fingers moved over the strings with a grace that made Reba's heart skip a beat. He wasn't a bicycle salesman. He wasn't a poet. He was just Ted, and he was wonderful. After the set, they sat at a small booth in the back. The air was thick with the scent of old wood and expensive whiskey. "So," Ted said, wiping sweat from his brow, "worse than a book writer?" "Marginally," Reba teased, "but only because you don't use as many adjectives." They talked until the staff started putting chairs on the tables. Ted told her about the llama ranch she'd once worked at and got fired from because he insisted on singing to the animals. Reba laughed so hard she snorted her soda, a sound she hadn't made since high school. "You're a survivor," Reba, Ted said, his voice suddenly serious as he walked her to her car. "I can see it in your eyes. But you don't always have to fight. Sometimes, you can just be." He leaned in, and for a moment, Reba thought he was going to kiss her. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Instead, he reached out and gently tucked a stray red hair behind her ear. "See you next Tuesday," he asked. "Maybe even sooner," Reba heard herself say. Chapter 9. The Brunch from Hell. Reba should have known the peace wouldn't last. In the hothouse, peace was merely the eye of a hurricane. The following Saturday morning, Reba was attempting to make pancakes when the front door flew open. In marched Barbara Jean, carrying a massive bouquet of sunflowers and a look of religious fervor. He's here, she squealed. "Who's here?" the taxman, Reba asked, flipping a pancake with more force than necessary. "No, Ted. I saw a strange car in the driveway, and I just knew." "Oh, Reba, is he in the shower? Can I smell his soap?" "Barbara Jean, that's my car. I got it washed," Reba lied, but her lie was immediately undermined by the sound of the doorbell. "I'll get it," Van shouted, sprinting from the living room. "I need to check his ID and his dental records." Reba dropped the spatula. "Van, don't you dare." Too late. The door opened to reveal Ted, looking casual in jeans and a flannel shirt, holding a box of donuts. "I thought these might be a better bribe than the Canadian bicycles," Ted said, grinning. He didn't even get a foot inside before he was swarmed. "Are you the musician?" Cheyenne asked, looking him up and down. "Do you have a record deal? Can you get me into a VIP lounge?" "Does your car have a hitch?" Van asked. "Because I have a trailer that needs moving and I'm not allowed to drive it since the incident." "Move aside, children." Barbara Jean pushed through. "Ted, I'm Barbara Jean. I'm the one who set you two up through the cosmic energy of my soul." Ted looked at Reba, his eyebrows raised. "I thought you said they were dangerous." "They're evolving," Reba sighed. "Come in, Ted. Welcome to the asylum." The brunch was, as expected, a disaster. Brock arrived 5 minutes later, claiming he just happened to be in the neighborhood and wanted to discuss Jake's soccer schedule. He spent the entire meal staring at Ted's hands. "So, Ted," Brock said, leaning back and patting his stomach. "Musician, hard to raise a family on a You have a 401k? Or do you just hope for the best and play a solo?" "Brock, stop it," Reba warned. "Actually," Ted said smoothly, "I own a small recording studio. It pays the bills, and it has a very nice 401k. It also has a no excess bends allowed sign. But I'm thinking of making it more specific." Jake, sitting at the end of the table, leaned over to Ted. "If you give me $50, I'll tell you where Mom keeps the hidden chocolate." "Deal," Ted whispered back. Despite the chaos, something strange happened. Ted didn't run away. He didn't look horrified. He looked entertained. He handled Barbara Jean's intrusive questions about his star sign, Van's questions about tire pressure with a patient smile. As Ted was leaving, Brock cornered him at the door. "Listen, buddy, she's a survivor. She's been through a lot. You hurt her, and you'll answer to me and my bird legs." Ted looked Brock in the eye. "I don't plan on hurting her, Brock. I plan on listening to her. Something you might want to try sometime." Chapter 10. The Heart of a Survivor. That night, after the house had finally settled into its usual hum of snoring and late-night television, Reba sat on her porch swing. The humidity was high, but for once, it didn't feel like a weight. She thought about the last few weeks. She'd started out looking for an escape, a way to be alone. She'd lie to the people she loved just to get a few hours of silence. But Ted had shown her that she didn't have to be alone to find herself. She just had to find someone who respected the space she occupied. "Mom." It was Cheyenne. She stepped onto the porch and sat down beside Reba. "He's actually really nice, Mom," Cheyenne said softly. "A lot nicer than the prison guard." The computer picked. "Yeah," Reba smiled. "He is." "Are you in love?" Reba paused. Love was a big word. It was a word that had been broken for her once, shattered into a million pieces of betrayal and lawyer fees. But looking at the stars, she felt a different kind of warmth. "I think," Reba said, "that I'm in a really good mood. And for a survivor like me, Cheyenne, that's a pretty great start." She pulled her daughter close. Her roots were planted in the past. Her life had changed in past. But who she was, mother, a fighter, and now, a woman who actually enjoyed a latte once in a while, was exactly who she wanted to be. Epilogue. The Houston sun still rises, and the hearts still argue over laundry. But every Tuesday, the world slows down. There is a guitar playing somewhere in a small studio, and a red-headed woman sitting in the corner. Finally, truly, at peace. She's a survivor, and the best part of surviving is finally getting to live.